Zoom. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to the Faces for Autism Streaming with Rob Telephone. I'm Jacob Hackett. You've heard stories from many of Faces volunteers, the organizations they support. And now you're about to hear from an organization that is very near and dear to my heart and to a lot of people's hearts that are part of Faces. My next guest tonight, as we prepare to wrap up this telethon, is a board member, a founding member of the South Jersey Field of Dreams. Please welcome my friend, Dr. John Glassey.
Is there applause now going on in the background?
Yes, there will be applause in the background. Thank you, John, for being here again this year. John, for the viewers watching us all across this country tonight, tell them, what is the South Jersey Field of Dreams?
It's a sporting complex that was built specifically for children and adults that have special challenges. It was originally simply a baseball park so that people in wheelchairs and with crutches and canes and other mobility issues could move about a baseball field that had indoor-outdoor carpeting for the infield. We have accessible bathrooms and a concession stand. And so we just started with a baseball program, but the program became so popular that we have since increased a fully adapted playground program next to the field. We've built a 9-hole miniature golf course, which again is all accessible, set up so that people that are challenged can play a round of miniature golf. We have a dining area and a social gathering area that has tables and lights, and so that people can have food and have a chance to sit and talk and socialize, as they say. And we have recently added a 5K or a 3-mile walking exercise trail surrounding the field and then into the adjacent woods, with exercise stations placed along the track. The walk trail can be used throughout the year, and it is also a place now where some fundraisers can be done without people venturing out into traffic because it's all within the complex. So it's a field that's been built for 18 years. It's been totally done with donations and fundraisers that the people involved in the field have put together. And we have now about 300 athletes, we call them, because some of them are younger and some of them are older. It's no longer just children. And we have 2 different seasons at the field. We have a spring season and a fall ball season. But the field is now used pretty much year round.
Yeah, yes, John, we're used year round. If as a matter of fact, tonight is April 1st. Our opening season occurs just 3 weeks from tonight. Yes, I've strongly encouraged it, and John will tell you this, and I'll tell you this, speaking from experience now as an older adult, being more involved in the field as time's gone on. If we do not have your support, if we do not have support of the volunteers, we cannot run. We are a specifically volunteer-based organization. No one is paid.
And that is a key point, because when we apply to grants to different foundations, one of the questions they ask is how many paid employees and how much money do you spend for overhead, administrative overhead. And we're always happy to check off the box that says 0, because everybody donates their time, everybody all the groups to come and volunteer to help the players on the field or in the playground or on the golf course. All the kitchen help is for free. Everybody comes for free. And amazingly, a lot of them come for free to help and also bring a check or a donation to the Field of Dreams.
Yes, and John, as you and I have seen the progression of time. For example, where I went to high school, ACIT, the Atlantic County Institute of Technology, which I referenced a few times this evening, they are one of our big schools, if you will, when it comes to volunteers. They come out yearly. They help on the field. We have our staff members. Our baseball team comes once a year, and then we have our softball team. So, that if you would like to help, which I'll get to in a moment, but John, like we said tonight, a lot of these organizations cannot, like us, we can't thrive. Well, we cannot run without these fundraisers, such as, I'm gonna pull an old one out of the basket of tricks that I have, like the Light Rock 96.9 Second Chance Prom. I know that hasn't gone on for a few years because of COVID, but that's a big one because we all went to it. We all had fun for a night, all to give it back to the kids at the end of the day.
Yeah, the Second Chance Prom was kind of a unique program where a radio station hosted it for us, 96.9. And we allowed people that did not have a great experience in their high school years at a prom or had a great experience and wanted to relive it. We gave them the opportunity to come to this prom. And it was kind of an interesting night. Some people came in tuxedos and gowns. Some people came in a very relaxed way, but it was a nice night and we got a chance because I didn't have a great time at my high school proms. And the Second Chance Prom, I went with my wife, which is a beautiful girl, and I had a great time. So it was good to redo that. And that was one of our fundraisers. We have a big fundraiser on the boardwalk every year at St. Patrick's Day weekend. We host a 10-mile and a 5K run. So that's another big fundraiser. And this year we're going to have some miniature golf tournaments that are going to be fundraisers where different corporations have in-house tournaments. And part of the deal is that everybody who plays makes a donation to the Field of Dreams and then plays for the trophy. Glenn Insurance just told us that they're going to have the Glenn Insurance Invitational this year, where they're going to play on the miniature golf course. And they've been big supporters of our field for over 15 years.
Yeah, and continuing the mission of an organization like Faces and the South Jersey Field of Dreams, it takes a lot of work from your major sponsors, just as John said, Glenn Insurance, Tim Glenn, who I'm going to reference. Without the backbone of them, they help our programs to run. So thank you, Glenn Insurance, for picking up as you have for many, many, many years, almost a decade. And well, yeah, it is a decade and a half. And Faces also celebrates 20 years this year. John, switching gears, I know you've been a part of the disability community for a long, long time. Talk about turning the tides a second to you specifically, how you got started in working with disabilities, because I know you have for a long time.
It actually started for me as a child. My parents were involved in the March of Dimes, which was a program very big in the 40s and 50s in the US. And that was specifically designed as a fundraising program to help youngsters that had polio. At one time, polio was a major, as they used to say, a crippler of young kids. And they developed a bunch of money based upon the President of the United States at that time, Franklin Roosevelt, was confined to a wheelchair. And so they started the March of Dimes. And as a kid, I watched my parents and their friends collect the dimes all over the place. And then all that money went into research. As a result of all of that effort, Dr. Jonas Salk of Pittsburgh developed a vaccine to get rid of polio. And then later another version by Dr. Sabin came out. And during the 50s and 60s, pretty much polio was wiped out in this country because of the vaccine. So that kind of inspired me that working in a charitable program, particularly for those who had some other issues, was a fun activity and a fulfilling activity. So when I turned in my late teens, early 20s, I started to get involved in organizations. I started with the Big Brothers Big Sisters program. And then I was working part-time in a children's hospital, Betty Bacharach Rehab Hospital at that time, which had a lot of polio patients, a lot of muscular dystrophy patients. And so from that, I morphed into the field of doing it full-time. I was a school teacher during the winters and worked at the children's home in the summers. And a couple of years later, I went to full-time work in children's hospitals. So we started the Special Olympics. I went to a conference and Elizabeth Shriver was at the, Eunice Shriver was at the conference, and Rayford Johnson, and they had just started the Special Olympics in 1968. And she was looking for someone to head up the program in New Jersey. So I told her I would take over New Jersey for her. And I came back home, and one of the first people I talked to about getting involved in the Special Olympics was your grandfather, Barry Hackett. And from there, we started the Special Olympics in New Jersey. And we started a wheelchair basketball team. We had the Tournament of Champions for those that had disabilities that were not mentally retarded. We got real involved in it in the 70s and did volleyball tournaments and car washes and all kinds of things to raise funds. And at the end of all of that, after 40 or 50 years of doing that, your grandfather approached me and said, let's build our own complex. And I told him he was crazy, which I'm not too sure that he still isn't crazy. I told him it was going to cost us $1 million to build the kind of complex that he had in mind. And he said, well, let's do it anyway. And we did. So that's been now 18 years ago we did that. And that's how the Field of Dreams came about. So it's been something that started in the 1950s. I got really involved in the early 70s, and we've been doing it ever since.
Yeah, and I mean, if you want to do something rewarding with your life, see it through the eyes of someone with a disability or who has challenges. I've been told by many, many of our volunteers over the past 10 as an active member, I would say 10, 11 as an active member of the South Jersey Field of Dreams, that it's a very rewarding experience. You get to see things that are eye openers. And I've had several of our coaches, John, say to me, I hope I taught the kids a lesson to be grateful for everything they have. And I said, that's a big one at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think you hit on something that we didn't foresee when we started the Field of Dreams, but we have certainly learned it, is that the volunteers who come to the field, particularly the young people who are on sports teams like the ACIT teams and the different high schools that send their baseball teams, their football teams, their cheerleading squads to the field to volunteer, they get a tremendous life lesson by being there and being around people who have challenges. And I think we probably had as much impact in those communities and in those groups as we did with the handicapped athletes. We designed it all for the handicapped athlete, but I think that the quote unquote normal kids have gotten as much or more out of the Field of Dreams than our athletes, because they then start to see that maybe their phone is not the most important thing, or their social media posts are not necessarily as critical when they see somebody who's having trouble, or someone who's having a seizure, or someone who has difficulty going from first base to second base. I think when they start to see some of that stuff live, for many of them, it's the first time they've ever encountered somebody with challenges, and it makes a big impact in them. Some more than others, but it's amazing how many of them come back after they've been there once. They go, "This is pretty cool. We'll come back," and they enjoy themselves.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a limit to how many times a group can come back. It's once in the spring, once in the fall. But if you want to come back by yourself and just volunteer, be my guest. There are no limits to how many times you can come back, and if you would like to volunteer, I am currently assisting our volunteer coordinator with some business. If you would like to volunteer, please feel free. Drop me a note on the Faces page. Send me an email. My email's been scrolling throughout the evening. Please do so. It'll change your life, because, as we say, John, and I've heard you say this during interviews, our kids are the kids that may not get to go to sleepovers or regular activities such as that. So,
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why the dining area, the social picnic area that we built, that's one of the reasons we did that, because we know that a lot of our kids never get invited to a sleepover, or don't go to the parties that the other kids, and sometimes don't go to the dances at the local school. So we wanted to give them a place where they can get together, where they can hang out, and where they're not the strange one in the crowd. Everybody around them is strange. We're all strange.
yeah, we're all a little strange. Uh, if you like more information on the South Jersey Field of Dreams, please visit www.southjerseyfieldofdreams.com. Click on the registration tab. Registration's up for spring ball, which will be happening in a few weeks. There's information on Hoops for All in Margate, which is currently going on. John, talk about another organization I know you're heavily involved in. I was happy to be a recipient of the Donald Sykes Award. Tell people about the Donnie Fund.
Donnie Sykes was a youngster who had significant physical problems and medical problems throughout most of his life. He ended up being my best friend through his teenage years and his 20s. We had a great deal of fun together. We did a lot of stuff. He was very limited in what he could do and how much of his body he could move. He could only move his hands a little bit. But he had a very sharp mind. He had a wicked sense of humor. He was a very bright guy, a smart mouth, a jokester. In fact, he had the nickname the Perv, because we thought he was a pervert. He and I were on the White House Conference for the Employment of the Handicapped for 8 years. We traveled back and forth to Washington together. And Donnie passed away, unfortunately, in the early 90s, and his family had been very good to us in and enabling us to do things, getting tickets to go to events and things of that nature. When Donnie passed, they didn't want those opportunities to be wasted. So they offered them to me to then pass them on to other members of the challenge community. So we started this thing called the Donnie Fund. They helped underwrite the services. And over the years, we started doing fundraisers for that program so that if a family has special needs that they cannot afford, like going back and forth to Philadelphia to Children's Hospital for chemo treatments or things of that nature. I mean, the tolls and the gasoline and the parking for each trip to Philadelphia and back is quite expensive. So we have started offering grants to the families, giving them $25 per trip to underwrite some of their costs. We started helping people buy wheelchairs. We started helping people get adaptive equipment for their house or help in a renovation or building a ramp to a house so people can get in and out of the building. Things that you've encountered in your life that you are very aware of, some of the difficulties that are involved. Um, some of the families that are faced with those types of challenges have very limited resources. So the Donnie Fund was started in the early 90s, and we're now in our 28th year of operation. Again, it's an all volunteer organization. We're a 501c3 charity. And between that division and our adult division, we actually expanded that about 18 years ago. We've given out over $1 million to local families to help them in whatever challenge they had. And it's a great program. The people that are on the board are all really good people. It's like the board at the Field of Dreams. Everybody who's in that is in it for the right reasons. Nobody's looking for their name on a plaque. Nobody's looking for a pat on the back. Nobody's looking to be considered a hero. All they want to do is help. And they don't care if they get recognized or get acknowledged by it. They just do it because it's the right thing to do. And so it's those two organizations have been very rewarding for me, and they're really fun. And we wanted to recognize a member of the handicapped community, if you want to use that term, every year who did things what we thought were extraordinary. And to serve as an example to the greater community is that because someone has a challenge doesn't mean that they're not useful, productive, helpful, whatever. So we started this thing called the Donnie Sykes Award. I know several of the people who have received that award, including yourself, and you're a good example of what the Donnie Sykes Award is all about. Someone who not only has benefited from these funds, but someone who has now turned and started helping and started becoming a contributor. And we find that over and over again, people who very often get the help turn around, become the help, and they start doing other things. Plus, I think someone like you serves as an example as someone who has so many talents that if people just look at you in a wheelchair, they don't realize how sharp your mind is, how bright you are, how dedicated you are. Like I like to tell people, is you can measure your physical stature, but it's very difficult to measure your mental stature, which is much better than I would give you credit for. And the biggest thing they can't do is they can't measure your heart. You have a heart that is immeasurable almost. And that's why you won the Donnie Sykes Award one year, is because you show so many other qualities. And we just have to have people, when it's possible, not to see you by the physical stature, but to see you by your mental stature and your desirability to do good things.
And at the end of the day, I think if Donnie Sykes was here and he saw the things that people were doing in the community, in his memory, he would be proud. And at the end of the day, I know that's why That's why we're here. That's why I'm putting this telethon together. So, friends, on that note, please, if you can donate $5, if you can donate any amount of your time to any of these charitable organizations that we spoke of tonight, if you feel within the goodness of your heart that you've got the time, the talents, and the willing to do for others, don't be afraid. Go out there and give it what you've got. And if you see something in the disability community, and I said this last week at ACCC, if you see something that doesn't look right, if you, as the line goes, if you see something, say something.
See, the bigger issue isn't so much money as it is give of time, give of yourself. If you can't afford the money, that's understandable. But we all have some extra time. We all have time that we don't have to spend watching TV or looking at your stupid phone to do social media stuff. Give of some of your time to somebody, even if it's just a neighbor, or help somebody else do something. Um, Help take out their trash, help shovel their walk in the snow, do whatever you can do. And you'll feel a lot better. I know I do. I know I feel great when I do some of these things. And sometimes, even though when you come home, you're from the field of dreams, I know when I come home, I'm as tired as can be after those long days. But it's a great way to spend your time.
Yes, it is. And once again, we open the weekend after Easter. That's the week, the 24th, I believe, the 24th of 23rd and 24th of April. If you want more information, please visit the South Jersey Field of Dreams. That's www.sjfieldofdreams.com, or on Facebook. We have a website. If you would like to register, please feel free to do so, or reach out to John or I. We would be happy to help you.
Absolutely. Come on out.